Okay, guys, this is some really good practice for any type of language arts, science, or social studies tests that you have to take, because a lot of it is going to be like reading and finding the central idea and finding supporting ideas. So it says some of the skills you're going to need to do is figure out what the central idea is and figure out supporting details. Central idea is the main point the writer is making. There is one central idea. Supporting details explain or elaborate on that idea. So there are multiple details. One central idea, multiple supporting details. So I'm going to read this text to you, and then we're going to look at some of the questions. It says, when you are dealing with unhappy customers, you have two goals. Your first goal is to help customers solve their problems. Your other goal is to keep individuals as a customer of reliable contractors. When you speak with a customer who is upset, apologize for the situation and explain that you want to help. Next, try to get specific information about the incident and repeat the complaint back to the customer to make sure you understood. Remain courteous and calm no matter how agitated the other person has become. When the customer has told his or her story, summarize what actions you will take and what the customer needs to do. End the conversation on a positive note and repeat that you value the customer's patronage. So then, the central idea or the main idea of this passage is how to deal with unhappy customers. That's your central idea. The supporting details are listing your goals. You've got a first goal, you've got another goal, it's telling you steps, and then here's another step. It's giving you lots and lots how to end the conversation, lots of specific steps, ways to deal with unhappy customers. So GED question 1 there says, what would be a good title for the passage? A says, speaking to customers. B, problem-solving strategies. C, sales procedures at reliable contractors. And D says, working with upset customers. So the answer choice is going to be D, working with upset customers. But really what I want to talk about is why isn't some of the other ones. Now, speaking to customers, it does talk about dealing and speaking with customers, so I wouldn't dump that one out straight away. And problem-solving strategies, there is a problem, and it does give a strategy. So those are two potential ones, but I would continue to look at my answer choices. It says, C says, sales procedures at reliable contractors. It doesn't really tell us about selling things. Then when I get to D, it says working with upset customers. Now, A and B were pretty appealing until I looked at D, because if I look at my central idea that we wrote, my main idea, it says how to deal with unhappy customers, and it's talking about customers. And D is the correct answer because it's specific to what the central idea has to do with, unhappy customers, upset customers. So now let's look at GED practice question 2 there. It says, what specific advice is given in the passage? A states, terminate the conversation if the caller becomes hostile. B, don't do anything until you get specific information about the problem. C, apologize and explain how you respond and respond in the customer's next steps. Or D, ask the customers how you can keep their business. The passage gives a lot of advice, so this is what we call finding text evidence. You have to go back to the passage to find the text evidence. It says, I'm just trying to look ahead where it says that answer. Let's see. It says, when you are dealing with unhappy customers, you have two goals. It explains your first goal. It explains your second goal. Apologize for the situation. Explain that you want to help. And then after that, try to get specific and do the complaint back to the customer. Oh, yeah, right here where it says, get the highlighter. Apologize. Oops, sorry guys. Still trying to work with this. This is a different one for me. It's a little different than I'm used to. Right here it says, apologize for the situation and explain that you want to help. And that right there is answer choice C. Okay, let's read another one. This is an example of a history text. Questions 1 and 2 are based on accomplishments of a famous American. Frederick Douglass is the most famous African American anti-slavery leader of the 19th century. He was born a slave. Separated from his mother at an early age, he was sent to Baltimore to live with the Auld family, who were relatives of his master. Until her husband forbade her, Sophia Auld taught Frederick to read. Since Frederick had already developed basic reading skills, he secretly used the Auld sons' books to teach himself more. Through his studies, young Frederick became committed to ending the injustice of slavery. Later, as an escaped slave and fugitive, he campaigned for the end of slavery through his speeches and the newspaper that he founded, the North Star. Once illiterate and enslaved, Frederick Douglass made the freedom and the enlightenment of others his work. Okay, so it says, what is the central idea of this passage? A, Frederick Douglass had a difficult childhood. B, once Douglass escaped, he became a fugitive from justice. C, once illiterate, Frederick Douglass founded a famous newspaper. Or Frederick Douglass used the knowledge he acquired to free others. So looking at A, talks a little bit about his childhood, but that's not necessarily the central idea. So I would mark A out. Now looking at B, once he escaped, he became a fugitive for justice. It says not really much about becoming a fugitive justice or escaping slavery, so let's get out of that one. C says, once illiterate, Douglass founded a famous newspaper. And it talks about him founding the North Star, but I would say that that's not the central idea here. So let's mark that one out. And let's read D just to be sure. It says, Frederick Douglass used the knowledge he acquired to help others, to free others. And that is the central idea, because it's talking about how he acquired this knowledge and how he used it to help other people out. So question 2. Which event was a critical turning point in Frederick Douglass' life? And it says, think, which detail reflects an event that changed the course of his life? And the first one says, he lived with the Aulds. B says he learned to read. C says he stopped reading his lessons. And D says he died a slave. So obviously dying, D, is going to change his life, but I believe that this has more to do with his lasting impact on society. So we're just going to dump that one. And C also, he stopped his reading lessons, because this has more to do with him ending his reading lessons, his young education. So it's between A, he lived with the Aulds, or B, he learned to read. So which of those had, as it said, was a critical turning point? So it says, separated from his mother at an early age, he was sent to Baltimore to live with the Auld family, who were relatives of his master. And then that's the first one. The second little clue was, since he had already developed basic reading skills, he secretly used the Aulds' books to teach himself more. Through his studies, young Frederick became committed to slavery. So it's like a good, excuse me, a good 2 choices, but without learning how to read, this is going to be B, he would not have been able to help other people. So learning to read was that turning point that gave him the ability to change other people's lives for the better. So then this next little science section is Earth and Space Science. We're going to read this little piece of text here, and then we're going to work through our 2 questions. An extremely powerful computer cluster at England's Durham University helps researchers understand the universe better. This huge supercomputer, known as the Cosmology Machine, or COSMA, was originally installed in 2001. In 2013, new infrastructure was added to the cluster, part of its 5th major upgrade. This amazing invention may seem unreal because its name, the Cosmology Machine, sounds like something out of a science fiction movie or novel, but the cluster does not deal in fantasy. It works with facts, and lots of them. COSMA is dedicated to the unlocking the secrets of the origin of the universe. It can take billions of observations about stars, galaxies, gases, and other forms of matter. Then, using its extraordinary processing capabilities, it can model how the stars and galaxies were formed and how they evolved over time. So question 3. What would be a good title for this passage? A. Truth is stranger than fiction. B. Supercomputer may unlock the past. C. The origins of the universe. Or D. How stars and galaxies were formed. So I'm going to get rid of A because it doesn't really talk about fiction at all. And B says supercomputer may unlock the past, which is true because this is a supercomputer. It's talking about the supercomputer here. And it's also talking about it can model how the stars and the galaxies were formed and how they evolved over time. So that's a good choice. So then let's look at C. The origins of the universe? Maybe. And then D says how stars and galaxies were formed. Well, I think this is a little more than that. So we're between B and C. And this answer is B, and I'm going to tell you it's B because the title covers the main idea of the passage, and the passage is how it can unlock the supercomputer, how it can unlock the past. Now let's look at 4. 4 states or asks, based on the information above, how does the supercomputer work? A, it's based on a machine featured in a series of science fiction movies, and no, it straight out says it may sound like it, but it's not. B says it develops artificial intelligence as informational input, and we didn't hear about AI at all. C says it makes calculations based on information, and I do remember something about calculations. If I go back, let me see, I'm going to look for it. It says it works with facts, lots of them. So it's talking about working with facts, making calculations, or, D says it's supported by a grant from the British government. We don't really talk about the money part, so that one is C. Okay, so go ahead and enjoy this video, rewind it, watch it again, but this is like a little taste of what the social studies, language, and science GED test will give you.